disgusting. I think it's like talking openly about how we know that capitalism doesn't work for most people. At first because his name had the word dick in it, and that was funny to me. Like, you can keep it. Hello, so it is what feels like 1 billion days of lockdown. And at the beginning of lockdown, I asked you guys to send me some questions on Instagram. I really missed just sitting down and having a little chat. I would say with you, but like really with anyone. I feel like with the rise of Zoom and like formally arranging to call people, I just missed this incidental intimacy of just like random chat. And you know when you're opposite somebody on a desk or in a coffee shop or you're walking somewhere, I guess I just miss pointlessness in general. So what could be more pointless than stickers? This is a wonderful book of sticker by numbers that my dear friend Hannah sent me for my 30th birthday. It seems like I've been barking up the wrong tree with this whole publishing thing because it looks like I perhaps have a career in stickers. I thought today we'd make a lazy lady because that's really what we all are inside. It looks like it's easy, but actually it's very serious business. And I'm going to answer some of your questions from Instagram. That's the whole thing. The first question is, how are you? Are you somewhere safe? Are you staying with your partner? Thank you for the worry. I am absolutely humdingly fine as anyone can really be. I lost some freelance work towards the beginning of the pandemic, but other than that, my job stayed relatively similar. I'm isolating in my flat with my boyfriend Craig, and it has its, like, you know, I think living in isolation has its days. I've definitely struggled to not be just cross-eyed, I think, with life. I think the most surreal thing, you may know that London, like, rent prices are, like, really off the wall, bandit level robbery. So to be paying London rent every month and living in what is effectively a small village that now has no connection to London is really weird. Craig described it as it kind of like being like paying an extortionate amount for a ticket to a fairground and then being forced to sit on one bench for the entirety of the evening and not being allowed to ride any of the rides. So I think it's definitely changed my attitude to London. Like the bits of London that I really miss, the bits of living in London that I don't really miss, like, I don't know, normalising standing in a stranger's armpit every morning. That was weird. But really, I'm having a day where I just want to say I can't complain. So lucky. I'm not worried about any of my relatives. So yeah, I mean, ask me a different day and I'll give you a massive, like, privileged moan, but kind of just like having PMS all the time. Ask me a different day and I might just have a little blub on you. But I mean, I've taught myself how to make so many scrunchies, and if I'm in here much longer, I'm going to just be a woman that walks around naked because they spent all of lockdown cutting up their clothes and making them into scrunchies, which is not in essence the worst thing. This is an important question that I can't believe I haven't covered on the channel yet. Which condiment would you most like to sponsor your videos? Now, as I've said before, and 100% thanks to the Gumption Club, I don't work with sponsors very often and I turn down about 95% of the offers that I get, but there are a few things I feel passionately about. If I'm giving you a serious answer, I do anything to do with like really truly sustainable products, digital experiences, but if I'm giving you my real true heart answer, I'd say Nutella, please sponsor me. Although they don't use fair trade chocolate and I'm trying to cut out unnecessary dairy. There's no such thing as a necessary animal product in your diet, but like since we last spoke, Janice, I kind of want to almost confidently say I have a vegetarian diet since January. So that's good, let's move forward. Maybe by the time I'd convince Nutella to sponsor me, I would be vegan. I would say Biscoff, please, Lotus Biscoff spread, please sponsor my whole life. They're vegan, by the way, what the fuck? So yeah, it would definitely have to be Biscoff, but a good question. Feel free to leave your own suggestions in the comments and I will happily reach out to the appropriate capitalist. Were you ever scared to upload an Instagram post or video? Yes, never not terrified. I think it's more, I feel like I'm quite confident in the style of stuff I make. Like, I think if somebody was like, this has been roughly done, or this wasn't perfectly edited, I'd be like, you, sir, have stumbled upon my brand. And I think I don't really want to get rid of the nerves of when I upload something that, I don't know, trying to open up a discussion about something that isn't completely my field of expertise. And I think it's important for people to discuss issues and talk about social progress, but obviously every time I hit upload on something that discusses trans rights, however much research I do, however much I include people in the videos that have better expertise or experiences than me, I upload that video knowing that it's going to have errors in it, knowing that I've made a mistake, and I often watch them back a lot to try and work it out, and I'll send it to relevant people unlisted to be like, can you tell me if I'm a dickhead? The more you live, the more you learn. The more you learn, the more you talk about other things you've learned. The more you get it wrong again, the more you continue to learn. Uploading the video I made about censorship in China, uploading the video that I did with my friend Teddy about trans rights, the video I did about the British Empire a few years ago, and then also I've like uploaded ones like about my PCOS, which is polycystic ovary syndrome, and ones about being lonely and stuff like that, and that just feels a bit more like vulnerable, I guess. But I've never like not uploaded a video because I've been scared about it. I have thought about making videos and then been like, now is not the time, or I am not the person. Basically, it's kind of like imposter syndrome. Sometimes you should have imposter syndrome because sometimes you are in the wrong space and you shouldn't be there. So I never want to get rid of like being hesitant of uploading certain things, because I think a certain level of hesitancy is healthy and good. But yeah, I have, basically. What content do you consume when you want to switch off? Ooh, my spirit animal, as should be obvious by this point, is Hyacinth Bouquet. You know when you see somebody hypnotised and then their head just goes straight down and it's like Darren Brown's just like, and go. That's how I am with keeping up appearances. For some reason, it puts me in this ethereal state. Possibly the most middle class thing I've said. It's not. What is your favourite short story compilation? I brought props. A Guide to Being Born by Ramona Asbell. Very good. One of my favourite books of last year. I Want to Write Like This. Please, writing gods. Also, Treats by Lara Williams. I Want to Write Like This. Please and thank you. I read this before Fleabag and Animals and stuff like that, but it's definitely in that vein and it's so good. I don't think it's one that's talked about a lot. It's published by a small Scottish publisher called Freight Books, and it's really incredible. This is a good one. What does being a professional at work mean to you, whilst at the same time being a feminist? As in not giving in to idealised chauvinistic ideals of being a professional, no feelings allowed, etc, etc. This is really interesting because obviously we're in lockdown at the moment, and I wonder how people are feeling without the various office dynamics that they usually have in their day, like pressing on their whole day. And certainly when I started like working for myself part-time, I still work 2 days a week in an office, although what am an office anymore? But I certainly noticed the difference of not having any kind of performative office dynamic when I started working from home. And obviously you dip into whatever your office dynamic is when you're on Zoom or whatever, but the rest of the time nobody's watching you, you're not in this physical presence around other people, and that could probably either be devastating if you had a really positive work environment like I currently do, where everyone kind of like talks and jokes and helps each other out and discusses things and bats ideas back and forward. But if you've been in toxic office situations, as I definitely have, it must be a relief. When you balance it out, I've probably spent about 50% of my working life in male dominated environments and 50% in like female dominated environments. And in some ways, I want to be like, oh my god, they're so different. I felt so comfortable. But actually, capitalism is capitalism, work environments are work environments, and just inherently some of them are going to be influenced by this incredible amount of monetary pressure that's coming from above, and that makes humans tense, whoever they are. When I was younger, I definitely felt pressure to be feminine in the office, get all the lad jokes, the pressure to be the person making the tea, the pressure to be the person who was like the most welcoming person in the office, the person that anyone could ask the random questions about where pens were stored, extra printer paper was available. And that, you know, what I realised about that as I got older was that that pressure was partly coming from me. And I know that in a lot of work environments it is coming externally, but for me, you know, at least 50%, if not more, was in my head. It was my idea of what a working woman was. I think I've been quite lucky with a lot of work environments in that it's been fine to cry in the office. I mean, people are always crying in publishing. It's just the thing. For me, and the luck that I've had with a lot of the work environments I've been, being a feminist in the office means constantly reminding your workplace of the gender pay gap that is present probably in most workplaces I've been in, especially since the law changed in the UK and now it's like out in the open, not forgetting that and mentioning it at every possible opportunity and in every single staff survey. As me, somebody who's a cis white straight feminist, what it should mean for me and what I've tried to practice of it as I've learnt more is checking up on the people around me that intersect two identities, one of which I probably don't experience, and recognising the differences in that and trying to stick up for them as much as possible. For example, at an unnamed workplace, I overheard some microaggressions going on with a woman in the office who was a different race to me. I was overhearing the conversation, but on my computer I was typing up minutes of exactly what this person was saying to her, and I signed it at the bottom and I sent it to her and I was like, just in case you need it and you want to take this further, here is a verbatim minutes of what was said. I'm happy to sign it, I'm happy to witness it, I'm happy to come with you if you'd like to bring it higher. But I think it's what's interesting is like I've called helplines about other stuff around abuse and stuff before, and somebody gave me some really good advice. It was just like, if you are the person to report something when somebody's being abused, you take the power away from them. You infantilize them. You take the way it's supposed to be treated out of their hands. So equipping people to do it and letting them steer, I think, is the most important thing. So for me, I don't know, I feel like I'm saying it wrong. I think it's like talking openly about how we know that capitalism doesn't work for most people, how connected capitalism is to feminism, and how connected your job might be to capitalism, and openly kind of bantering about that at lunchtime and working it out with people, like not trying to preach, but like not denying that your politics is connected to your job and your work and your life and the rest of you, and not denying your personhood while you're at work, and encouraging other people not to do that either. But now, to be honest, working mostly for myself, I've never been in such a feminist environment. I've got a great boss, bit temperamental sometimes, but gets the job done, feeds me lots of Nutella, and the gender pay gap is non-existent. How do writers who don't have a huge following get published? I need to get moving on these stickers. You're distracting me, to be honest. So, big misconception is that you need a big audience to get a book published. I think the problem here is the rule of like degrees of separation, in that you're more likely to watch somebody online who has published a book rather than know somebody in real life that's published a book. And that's just like numbers, that's just like maths. If you have an online platform, it's easier to be seen by more people. Therefore, the viewers will be people who are more likely to have seen somebody with a book online. Am I making any sense? To rebalance your perspective, I suggest going into something like the Bookseller magazine website, looking at all the debut authors that have been published this month, and then going on Twitter and looking at those people's followings. There are certain parts of publishing that love an established audience, a certain secure number of sales, a ready-made brand. But there's also a certain section of publishing, and within every publishing house, it's just different editors and different genres, that loves an unknown name, worships an unknown name. The biggest like advances that go to debut authors, like that you'll see in the news, are all unknown authors. They're all like, there's always at least 2 or 3 debuts that are sold at Frankfurt every year. That like people get 6 figures for stuff. People get literally paid like £100,000 for the rights to a book when they don't have any kind of audience. They've just written what the publishers believe to be a fucking cracking book. And the agent has done a really good job of like hyping that book up and showing the authors where it would work in the market. And an advantage if you don't have an audience is that a publisher can help brand you. You have a clean slate in the market. Like journalists will have never heard of you before, so they can so you're kind of like untainted in the market, in marketers' eyes, and they can brand your books without having to slot into any other kind of agenda or brand. Expertise helps in non-fiction, but often it's not about the amount of audience that person has, even if they have kind of accumulated an audience because of their expertise. So for example, Yanis Varoufakis, Laurie Penny, but it's likely that those people were published because their writing is incredible and because they have this stamp of excellence, which is being published by the New Statesman, being published by the Times. And yeah, they have an audience as a byproduct of that, but they won't have been published just on the back of the fact that they have an audience. So yeah, if you don't have an audience, like, it doesn't, in some ways it might give you an advantage over somebody like me trying to get published, to be honest. Favourite childhood book? I'm a primary teacher, says this person. Oh my god. So I used to really love Dick King-Smith, at first because his name had the word dick in it, and that was funny to me. But turns out, great writer, so whatever draws you in. He wrote a book called Lady Daisy, which is a book about a boy who finds a Victorian doll in the attic. It's a creepy cover, I'll give you that. And she talks to him and tells him about the past and the past of the house, and it's really magical, and I was really obsessed with Victorians at one point. Lottie Project Forever. I didn't read a lot of classics growing up as a kid, you know. Everybody like romanticises this thing of like, oh, I read Anne of Green Gables when I was a child, or I read The Secret Garden, and I'm like, I did not. My mum used to take me to the local library every week and like, I think leave me there actually. It was a different time, and I'd just go to whatever was marketed towards me. I'd go to the shelves with the glittery covers and the dragons, and the classics were fugly, to be honest. It taught me a lesson in design and the importance of it. So I read a lot of Jacqueline Wilson. I loved Ian Colfer, The Wish List. God, I should reread that book. Like Guitar Girl, do you remember Guitar Girl? The Sabrina books. It was a good time. Oh, and obviously Roald Dahl. What reality show would you go on and why? Ooh. Hot take, but I actually think I'd be really sick at reality shows, even though like I probably morally abhor them. I haven't really thought about it very hard. I think I morally abhor them. One that I think would have a point to it would be the history ones, like going back in time, LARPing, going to live like a Roman. I just think that those kind of shows that like they don't really make them that much anymore. They used to make them all the time, and they just have so much more value. You actually like learn shit. And it's not all about, you'd still get a good programme without having to artificially create drama that could essentially long-term traumatise people and ruin their lives. Though I will admit, reading Ghost Wall really did make me think that it's not what you LARP about, it's who you LARP with. So I would be more careful about that after that book. This question is a cock tease, and I will take it. Fill a perfect day in London after social distancing is over. Well, we start near Victoria at a place called the Regency Cafe. The most phenomenal greasy spoon, pie and chips, beans and eggs kind of cafe. Cash only, that's when you know it's a good place. Then we would saunter on down to the river where the Tate Britain is. Now I don't feel like I'm a natural art gallery kind of person, but I used to work near the Tate Britain, and it's become like a kind of weird church to me, and it's just such a nice airy, it's not like the other kind of like really stuffy galleries, it's really airy and chill, and they also have the best bookshop. So we mooch around there, and then it is a lovely scenic walk over the river to South Bank, where there is a beautiful book market under a bridge. Pick up some secondhand books, watch the skateboarders in the skate park, look at the river, smell the roses, try to bat off the seagulls and the American tourists. Then we would go to this place called Scooters, which is this dingy, woody, kind of grubby cafe. Cakes by the slab. Oh, I miss it there. Then we would do a walking tour. I just really like following a stranger around random streets and them telling me random facts I'll never retain. I end up either at Pizza Pilgrims for some very stringy candlelit pizza, or Gordon's Wine Bar and order a platter of cheese the size of a small child. We would shimmy on down and see a West End show. I'm not picky. I mean, if all else fails, Mamma Mia. We would end the night absolutely mooching with a capital M down the river with a hot cup of coffee, talking about life, death, Angus thongs, full frontal snogging. I'm 25 and I've never been in a relationship. People call me weird. Am I? Yeah, I'm kidding. No, of course you're not weird. Obviously it's not the same, but like I didn't have my first kiss till I was like 18, or have a boyfriend till I was like 19, and I felt really behind, and I know that 25 is older than that, but it depends on the kind of, I feel like, you know, one of my best mates had a baby when we were like 15, so I was real behind. It's all context, people. So I know what it's like to feel behind in that department, and I think I also had about 3 or 4 years of being single in my 20s when everybody else, it felt like everybody else was in these like obnoxiously long-term happy relationships, and they kind of came as a pair, and that used to really bug me that society was set up for everybody to come as a pair to like weddings and outings, and I think that's informed how I am now that I am in a relationship. I hope that I am trying to dismantle a culture like that I don't know how good I am at it though, to be honest, now I'm saying that out loud. What I want to say to you is that you're wrong. You have been a relationship. And how do I know that? Without having met you or know anything about you, is that I don't think that the romantic relationships are in fact that different from friendships and from family relationships. The skills that you gain and the fulfillment that you have from those relationships are different, but I think in essence can be as deep and as intimate, and you also need the same kind of, if not more, like interpersonal skills to be in relationships other than romantic ones, because you don't have cuddle hormones and sex to solve things. You have to do it on your own. So I think if you're somebody who's a master of personal friendships, like a friendship is a relationship. Friendship breakups have hurt me way more in the past than boys ever could. And I think some people encourage this falsity that somehow romantic or sexual or eros relationships are completely different, another planet, you have no idea, whereas I think you probably have a very good idea of relationships. And I don't know what gender you are, I don't know how you identify, but I think a lot of the principles in this book apply to a lot of people. Is this book called Spinster, a polemic, like a manifesto of the single person, all the ways their power is diminished and looked down on in society, and why it's just not true, and why you can live a really fulfilling life as a single person. Also would recommend for that Dolly Alderton's book, especially when it comes to like the importance and intimacy of nurturing friendships. The difference between being in a relationship and being single, they're different challenges. It's not necessarily better or worse. I think it's just a different conscious decision you make when you find somebody that you really love. But you become, there's that phrase that's like, you become like the 5 people that you spend the most time with. And if you're spending the majority of your time with people who make you feel like you are weird, then it might be who you're surrounding yourself with rather than your inherent weirdness. Rant over. Rants are never really over with me. Rant paused. That's a more accurate depiction of what just happened. I also have a whole series of videos on being single if you're interested. How to beat your inner misogynist. My brain tells me my armpit hair is disgusting. Oh man, that is, I just think, I'll probably make a more extensive video about this, but I've been thinking about this recently. It's like you've read my mind. Becoming a feminist, as a cis woman at least, that's the experience that I can speak to, means admitting to yourself that your views have been shaped by something that didn't have your best interests in mind. However, I think with every single one of those decisions, it's up to you whether you want to completely reprogram or if you want to use it to your advantage. Subvert it for your own joy. That can apply to everything from fake nails to plastic surgery to turning the pressure to have children to liberation to have children and do mothering in your own way, all of that. And I think that, how do I put this, if the effort and the energy and the reserves you're putting into reprogramming is more exhausting than the misogyny itself, it is okay to forgive yourself and redirect those energies to the priorities for you as a feminist. Perhaps your priorities is social action to get equal pay. Perhaps it's to raise awareness around domestic violence. Perhaps it's around your inability to be able to assert yourself in the workplace and working on that confidence. Your courage to walk away from a relationship or a friendship that makes you as a feminist on some level feel completely demoralised. Working out where like misogyny is affecting other people and affecting you most prevalently and directing your energies there is better than trying to hide your razors from yourself around your house and walking around the world worrying that your arms are too hairy. Genuinely, I lost a lot of intellectual energy in my teenage years to thinking about this part of my body and whether it was hairy or not. I also just think that you should apply that when you're judging other people for not getting over feminist problematic things, is that complexly imagining their life and be like, they're probably directing their energies to another part of their life that is being fucked by misogyny. I hope they do well with that. Someone asks, losing weight the feminist way? Been waiting on your views on this since your video. So a long time ago I made some videos on like the politics of chubby, I guess, and feeling like not at home in either camp, like not in the weight loss, not in the you lose weight, it's sexy camp, and not in the just eat whatever you want and don't worry about it camp. And I think that like I have solved it for myself a little bit this year, but I've made a kind of like bargain with myself to not talk about it online because my learning is if you struggle with your weight in any way, it's very likely that the solution that you find will not be universal. It's very personal and there isn't an answer that works for everybody. And if actually, I think in trying to find an answer that worked for everybody, that I could universally share on this channel as a follow-up to videos like that I'd made, kept me from finding an answer that made sense for me. And actually, in the same way that your like personal relationships work, there are people like, you know, when you meet somebody's boyfriend and you're like, I could never date that man. Or like, I could never put up with that thing about them, even if the rest of them was really great, or it just wouldn't work for me. A relation, the kind of, you break up with somebody and you're like, this is not you or me, it's this kind of relationship between us, just it's never gonna work. It's like that with like your relationship to weight, I think. I think that I can tell you things that I've done around my own confidence and body. I could tell you stuff about how I've changed the way I eat, but I don't think that would be safe or healthy or wise, because it's so easily interpreted as a universal truth when you put something up like that. And also, I don't know the long-term, I can't hand on heart say that the long-term effects of the way I've made peace with food isn't damaging, because this isn't 10 years in the future. I don't have, and that's how long it takes for stuff like that to show up, I think. I obviously have made videos like my Gibson Girl video that's like discussing the politics of bodies. But just when it comes to sharing my own personal stuff, I'm like, I think that's a line in the sand I'm drawing. For now, who knows? Which book character are you and why? Ooh. So, again, if you listen to the Banging Book Club, me and Hannah and Lucy all read How to Build a Girl by Caitlin Moran, which is about a chubby, awkward, gobby girl from the Midlands who, when most people read that book, find her really annoying, which was such a weird moment for me because I read that book and was just like, oh my god, it's just me. This is exactly what thoughts go through my head. This is how I'd act in certain situations, especially when I was younger. And I don't know if you ever had this, but it was so weird to surface out of that book and realise that loads of people don't like her. And I'm like, I see. And then also now, thanks to fate, Beanie, what's-her-face, who everybody says is the spit of me, which, whatever, she's playing her in the film and I'm like, oh my god. I am deeply concerned about that accent in the trailer. How is your XR work activism changed within isolation? How are you doing on your activist journey? I like the idea that it's a journey. So I haven't been that involved with XR, I'll be honest. I reviewed their book, talked about them a bit. I've been on a few of the marches. When I was thinking like, who do I long-term want to give my time and money to? It was Greenpeace. It's always been Greenpeace, but I just really respect them as a charity and I've given them money for a long time. I just think that they have the history and research behind them that makes me go, I want to hear more from you. Just before lockdown, I finished up training as qualifying, I guess is the word you could use, as a Greenpeace speaker. When I was looking at like what I could do and what I could volunteer my time doing, I was just like sitting there like, oh, I could do this, I could do that. And then I was like, what can I do that other people hate? And for me, it wouldn't be a chore, it would be joy. And I was like, oh, public speaking. And also because I work a lot for myself and part-time flexibly, I am in a unique position where I can go and volunteer in the middle of the day. So I applied for this training and I got in. Then lockdown happened. So I have been doing a few remote talks online. And because I've got this vlogger thing going on, I was training a lot of the other like Greenpeace speakers on how to present on Zoom and how to like make talks more dynamic and come alive on Zoom, which was really fun. At the moment in my journey, I'm definitely still in the learning stage and the studying stage and like having instincts, but then like actually knowing the actual facts and being able to cite them off the top of my head is really the only way I think I can move forward. So I've been learning stuff. That's all of the questions that I had picked out, but I'm still not done with these stickers. So I'm just going to ask myself some questions while I finish. Is that sad? I mean, if that's sad, then the whole premise of this channel is deeply sad, isn't it? What's been a good thing that's happened to you in lockdown? The Gumption Club has genuinely been a lovely thing. My Patreon group, we have like a secret Facebook group, and we've been doing like film watch-alongs. So we watched The Sound of Music together, and we watched 18/4 Charing Cross Road together. And it's been really nice to just like casually chat with very witty people who have the same mindset as you about life. I've been baking, which for everybody else seems like a thing, but for me that's like a really massive deal and actually has built my self-confidence a lot. I baked a pie for the first time. Lena, what else is on your mind? Well, what life is going to look out like after lockdown is something that has been confusing to think about, because I feel like if I think about the good parts of it too much, then I will be lax in my lockdown execution. I don't really have anywhere to be honest. I don't have any dependents. I don't have any children. So I feel like the more of us who can continue to stay inside despite having shithead teachers that put your lives in danger, it's just such a different situation to the US or to Europe. Most of the countries in Europe now, like, we're just the worst, and we're still the worst. And it's not, I don't know about you, but I find the idea of getting a bit more freedom and then it being taken away again, as it inevitably will because there will be a second wave, I think I'd just rather stay in this state. There's one or two of the things that you're allowed to do that I know that I can do safely and that like don't pose a big risk, but like in general I just like, you can keep it. I made a video about lockdown when it was a new thing. When me and lockdown were in our honeymoon phase, what I didn't expect was that I would be reflecting on how all of those changes I was talking about relates to me. And I've mentioned this before, something that I think is really important and is like a good goal, is to have somewhere that people can't chuck you out of if you can't pay the rent. While it feels impossible, I think it's also should be a human right, and I think that it's exposing the inequalities in the rent market to a disgusting degree. So that's something that's become a bit more prevalent in my head, that it's just like, okay, when unexpected stuff like this does happen, in the future, what position would I like to be in? And I'm like, well, ideally I'd like to not have to worry about rent or mortgages one day, maybe when I'm like 40 or 50. I don't think that you hoping for that is a luxury. I think that if we were designing the world anew, that would be a necessity. I also feel like lockdown has given everybody an opportunity to be more honest when we ask, especially in Britain, when we ask, so how are you? Which usually the legally required answer is, I'm fine, how are you? And then now we're allowed to go a bit deeper into that and describe all the various ways we are fine and not fine. I miss the cinema more than I thought, because I don't know, it feels like this channel has shown, like my recent videos on this channel show me that I'm like, do I have an interest in films? Is films a thing that is a thing that's me? Because I just didn't think I did. I'm so into books, and I haven't seen all of the bro films that other people have because of my fear of the dark and also of bad jokes. This is really coming together. I'm excited now. The way the discussions around racism have been reignited by the George Floyd stuff has been like a really, I don't know, it's just something that I think I'll remember lockdown for, in that it's just been occupying my mind a lot. How to sustain like actionable change for that in the future and not just like tweet about it. I hope that's what a lot of people will associate with this time and not forget about it. In Britain we tend to do that a lot. We tend to not learn about it in the first place or just forget about it. This is so satisfying. Like in my workplace we've got like a WhatsApp group where I've been like, does everybody want to read How to Be an Anti-Racist by Ibram X. Kenny? And loads of people said yes, so we all have this like WhatsApp group where we're going to be reading it together and trying to go offline with the discussion as well. That's been interesting to think about as well. Oh my god, it's the last piece. Are you ready? From sea to shining sea, like Lady Liberty, she reigns over all she sees. The laziest lady. Links to the Gumption Club, Patreon, my newsletter that comes out every Sunday. Hit the like button if you'd like to indicate to me that you'd like more videos like this. Hit the disgusting button if you'd like to indicate to me that you'd like me to stop making videos like this. Redistribute the wealth. And until next time, Frog Snug out.